My name is Mary Jo Berry. I am with the Mineral County Chamber of Commerce. We are the ones that are sponsoring the forums in Alberton, St. Regis, and this evening in Superior. Our moderator for this evening is seated to my right here, Maria Jarnovic. She's from Missoula. She's moderated our forums before, so you guys might remember her. There's also, in the middle table, there's paper, pens, and there's also a basket there if you have questions. I'm gonna turn this over to Maria.
Well, thank you again for inviting me back. I do want to say thank you, a very heartfelt thank you to Superior High School for providing this venue, to the Mineral County Chamber of Commerce for putting this together, and to Mary Jo Berry, who is a prime mover and shaker behind the scenes here in Superior. She has done a fabulous job of organizing these events. I would think that she deserves, along with the Mineral County Chamber of Commerce, a round of applause. All right, just a couple of housekeeping issues. Number one, civility rules. That's it. Number two, cell phones. If you have a cell phone, kindly turn it off. All right, the first section, the first hour is going to be set aside to ask candidates questions that have been devised by the Mineral County Chamber of Commerce. The second session after the break is going to be set aside for the candidates to answer questions specific to their positions from the audience. Okay? That's essentially the format. And with no further ado, I am going to begin.
Nick, identify yourself, your current occupation, the elected position for which you are running, and why you are running for the position. And you know you've got 2 minutes.
Howdy folks, I'm Nicholas Schwaderer. I was hiding over there if you didn't see me. I work at Mineral Pharmacy, family-owned business here in town, so if you pick up prescriptions or have a cold or something, you might remember me from there. I am your representative for House District 14, and I am running for re-election. I graduated from, don't hate me for this, St. Regis High School and went to college, worked at Tricon for a bit, worked at the Clark Fork Chronicle here in town, made a few Tombstone pizzas in Wisconsin, went to college, and following some work as an aide with my predecessor, Gordon Hendrick, filed in and ran for office. And the reason I'm running this time is a stronger fervor for the reasons I ran the first time. You know, when you hear a lot of these political folks talk about the future generations, their children, their grandchildren, why they're running, well, I'm a part of that generation, and I'm significantly concerned that the policy that we lay today in government is going to provide the foundation for the future that we all have to live with. I think we ought to do it right and have a kind of a business and local common sense mindset for that. I think it's incredibly important that we do the right job. Thank you.
If we can hold the applause until after everyone completes, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
My name is Robert McCandless. I've lived in Hagen for 8 years. I am retired. I'm probably the oldest person up here on the stage right now. I'm a young 71 years old. I've been married to my wonderful wife, who is the love of my life, for many years. We have 6 children, 10 grandchildren. We had 5, you're gonna love this, 5 teenage daughters and a teenage boy. And we got through it. I'm running for the position of the West End County Commissioner. The reason I'm running is that I want to represent the West End in a diligent manner and to be readily available to the residents living in all of the West End District. Living in Hagen and being retired will afford me this opportunity. The safety and welfare of the residents of Mineral County is my primary concern. Another concern that I have is getting information to the people in the West End. A lot of times, the people up there have not a clue what's going on in county government or anything else, and they need to know and become involved. And I have 30 seconds left, so with that, I thank you for coming. I would appreciate your vote, and if you have any questions for me, you can talk to me at the break or afterwards. Thank you very much.
My name's Tony Pearson. I have a ranch in west end of Mineral County on Little Joe Road. And bought in 1970. Moved here permanently 14 years ago. But I commuted back and forth for several years, logging timber off, exporting. As my main venue then, exporting private and domestic timber overseas. I exported cottonwood out of here before the SMZ come into effect. And been in the trucking business for 48 years. Been in logging a little longer than that. Had a mine in Elk City, Idaho that my wife and I and another family owned called Barton Mining Company. Bought and sold heavy equipment and farm, raise cattle, a little bit of everything we do in a ranch. Been married 50 years to my wife Roseanne, down in the yellow shirt on the second row. Got a son who's a state policeman in Oregon, both fishing game and highway patrol. And a daughter is married to a rancher in Lame Deer, Montana. Daughter married to a rancher in Paisley, Oregon. Another daughter married to a rancher in New Mexico, and they sold out there, and now they live in Kalispell. So I have 12 grandkids. So 3 of my children went to college, and one of them got a doctorate. The other 2 got master's degrees. All I got is Mr. degree. So.
What are you running for?
I'm running for county commissioner, West End. And with my experience, I think I can do a job that will represent people here very well. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming, and thanks for getting the phone working. My name is Dwayne H. Simons. I'm your current County West End County Commissioner.
Put the mic up.
Oops, sorry. I'm the current West End County Commissioner. I've served Mineral County for 6 years. I live down in St. Regis, Montana with my wife Donna. We've been married for 40 years. I was born in Whitefish, Montana in 1955, raised in the Flathead Valley, moved to St. Regis in, I believe, 1971. Went to work for my dad in the woods, worked most of my life in the woods. Up until 2006, I broke my left ankle and had to have 2 severe surgeries done on it. And at that time, I chose to run for county commissioner, was elected. I also work a night shift down at Tricon running 966 in their log yard. And I'm very fortunate to have that job. I love Mineral County. I love living here. In the last 6 years that I've been commissioner, we've made some real tough decisions. And every decision that you make that comes before the commissioners can be a tough one. It's always dealing with people's lives and money. And I think that there are a lot of things that I'd like to continue doing here, and I'd like to see a couple of projects done to fruition. And so if you see fit, I would appreciate your vote on June 3rd. Thank you.
Good evening. Great to see such a good crowd tonight. I was born and raised here in Superior, and Nick, that makes this my backyard. I live here because I love Mineral County and what it has to offer. I'm Tom Bauer. I'm a college student, a member of the Montana Air National Guard, and I'm running for Mineral County Sheriff. I'm running for Mineral County Sheriff because Mineral County needs effective, trusted law enforcement. I will bring integrity, professionalism, and dedication to this position. I will dedicate my life to the citizens of Mineral County as their sheriff. I will ensure the deputies, under sheriff, and I work with professionalism, integrity, dedication, and be held accountable for our actions every day I'm in office. I have 21 years civilian law enforcement experience, 29 years military law enforcement experience. I've been a DARE officer. I was a certified narcotics canine handler and trainer. I've deployed several times and carried out missions in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. I have many years of supervisory experience and monetary with budgetary as well. Citizen safety will be a priority of mine. Illegal drug enforcement in the communities and all schools will be a priority in Mineral County. I will house federal prisoners in our jail. I will start a narcotics canine program. I will train schools and business on active shooter and law enforcement issues. There will be a school resource office dedicated to drug enforcement and law enforcement education. And this deputy will be hired to a COPS grant. I will start a Sheriff's Advisory Council made up of people from different zip codes throughout the county and a student from each school as well. I will start a youth law enforcement summer camp. This is why I'm running for Mineral County Sheriff. I have the most experience and I'm ready to be the next Mineral County Sheriff.
You ready, Phyllis? Yeah. My name's Adam Cole. I'm currently a child abuse and sexual abuse investigator for the county attorney's office. I also handle cold cases or any follow-up work the county attorney needs. I'm running for sheriff. In the last 10 years, I've been a detention officer. I've been a probation officer. I worked for the Department of Corrections as a drill instructor. I've been a deputy and now a investigator. I fully understand the responsibilities that come with being the sheriff. I'm ready to take the next step and bring that to this community. I'm currently married to my wife with a 1-year-old daughter, Addison. We live in Alberton. We're building a home, and this is where we want to live. This is where we want to raise our family. This is where I want to work. Thank you, and have a good day.
My name is Michael Toth. I'm 42. I'm not married, and to my mom's dismay, I have no kids. I'm running for the office of sheriff. And I think, like everybody up here, all of us and everybody that's ran for office in Mineral County, it's because we care about the county. We love it here. But what sets me apart is my 17 years of law enforcement experience. I started as a reserve officer, worked my way up. I paid my own way through the Montana Law Enforcement Academy. I then got hired here in 1999 by Anita Parkin. She was sheriff then, and worked here through 2004. My time spent here in Mineral County, a lot was happening. I'll hit some highlights. 2 homicide cases I was involved in investigations, both leading to convictions. The only Mineral County deputy ever to be sent to the DEA Academy for meth lab training. Included after that, busted over 5 different meth labs. The largest cocaine seizure off the interstate in Mineral County that led to $90,000 being put into the drug forfeiture fund. Then I went to Seattle PD and worked downtown nightclub district in Seattle. Seattle is one of the leading departments in community policing, and they really put the officers through a lot of training with that. So I have the community policing with working with the schools, working with the business owners, and all that to bring into the county. From there, I went to Renton PD as a detective for them. Property crimes, burglaries, thefts, identity theft investigations. And of course, that has a wealth of training from surveillance training to undercover school and everything that came with the detective training. Then I moved back to Montana for my family. My dad had cancer, so I moved back to take care of him. And I got involved in union work and was a union director dealing with labor issues between employers and employees, and doing contracts and getting rid of the conflicts between them. All that said, I would like your vote, and thank you.
Hello. It's apparent from the turnout that citizens of Mineral County are very concerned and tuned into this election. My name's Rob Larson. I'm a current deputy with the Mineral County Sheriff's Office, and I'm running for sheriff. I'm married to Regina for 14 years this September, and we have 3 kids. Zach, who will be 21, Emily and Katie, one's 12 and one's 9, and they go to the schools here, up in the elementary school. And I'm also a homeowner, and I live here in Superior. I think my best training for sheriff has come from my over 5 years of experience as a detention officer at the Missoula County Jail, and my over 7 years as a peace officer. Currently, with the department, I'm the deputy coroner, field training officer, senior breath test specialist, and search and rescue coordinator. And I believe that a dedicated and effective sheriff's office is critical to the success of any county, city, or community. In addition, it's my belief the citizens of Mineral County need and deserve a relationship with the sheriff's office that is rooted in trust, and that the hardworking men and women with the sheriff's office deserve the same. Thank you.
I'm Julie Ballinger, and I'm not running for sheriff. We're transitioning here. I am your current Mineral County Buckle Up Coordinator, as well as the SCRAM Manager for the MDT, Montana Department of Transportation funded DUI courts. And SCRAM, if you don't know, those lovely ankle monitors that monitor alcohol use. So anybody that has an alcohol offense, they might have a little bracelet on, and I handle the billing for those. I'm married to Jim. We'll be celebrating our 32nd anniversary in June. I'm the stepmom to 2 grown daughters, and I have a 19-year-old grandson. The reason I'm running for Mineral County Justice of the Peace is I have the knowledge and skills needed to make a smooth transition if I'm elected. My extensive court experience has afforded me the day-to-day court experience needed to handle all misdemeanor cases and felony initial appearances, as well as all civil proceedings. My customer service experience has given me the skills needed to be able to work with the public in a professional yet effective manner. Justice court is not a consumer-based business. The justice system is designed to handle offenses and civil matters in the here and the now. During the sentencing procedure, the justice of the peace needs to follow the law and the sentencing requirements, as well as review the person's criminal history. Following the law ensures fair and consistent justice provided by the court. I feel I have the compassion and impartiality needed to be able to make the best decision for both the victim and the accused. And lastly, I'm the only Justice of the Peace candidate running that has been nationally trained to participate in a treatment court program. By me already having this training, the transition in the treatment court program would run smoothly, as I'm already familiar with the 10 guiding principles of a treatment court and the best practices. And I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dale McGowan, and I've been married to my wife Becky for 38 years, and we've lived in the area pretty much our entire life. We had a barbershop here for many years, and during that time I served on the Superior City Council as a councilman and mayor, and also on the volunteer fire department. We also raised 2 sons here. Both were in the military. Our older son Sean was in the Army for 12 years. 18 months was spent in Iraq, and our younger son Kyle has been in the Navy the last 5 years and has just re-enlisted. I spent 15 years working in an insurance office where I handled large financial transactions, dispute resolution, and customer service. So basically my entire life was spent in working with the public. I spent the last 5 years going back to school and just got a Bachelor of Science degree, and also have an Associate of Science degree. I do not have any experience. I probably have the least experience of anybody here relating to specific to the Justice of the Peace Office, but I feel my years spent in the insurance agency working within guidelines helped me operate within the confines of the guidelines of the Justice of the Peace Office. Also, my years going to college shows that I have the tools to be able to learn and gain the knowledge necessary to fulfill the duties of the office. So I'm running for Justice of the Peace, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Mark Grimm. I own a custom cabinet shop here in Mineral County, and I'm running for Justice of the Peace. I'm married to my wife Cindy. We have a daughter, Amy. You know, when I first started this campaign, man, I almost threw up on my shoes. I was scared, unsure, and apprehensive. But as the campaign has progressed, I've realized from talking with so many of you that we all recognize that changes are needed in justice court. I am the person to make those changes. I will make positive changes to the justice court in Mineral County. I have the following goals for improvement of the justice court. Improve customer service to the public in the following ways. Reduce the time required to process cases. Minimizing time spent by litigants waiting at the courthouse. Trying new programs such as modified hours for civil and criminal courts for public convenience. Ongoing staff training. To ensure the quality of justice provided by the court, increase uniformity in procedures. Consideration of using alternative dispute resolution. Planning for the needs of the youth, elderly, mentally ill, and others. Improvement of the infrastructure of the court. These accomplishments will be a good start. Citations and monies are handled on a daily basis by the Justice Court staff. My first duty as Justice of the Peace will be to institute new management procedures to ensure checks and balances for all citations and monies handled by the Justice Court. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Doug Sharkey. I'm currently retired and I'm running for the Office of Justice of the Peace. My wife Lorna and I are longtime residents of the county. We live out at Dry Creek. We have 4 kids and a football team's worth of grandkids. Oh wait a minute, this is Superior. That's an 11-man team. I'm running for Justice of the Peace for several reasons. I'm the only candidate of the 5 of us that has both law enforcement and judicial experience here on the bench locally. I was fortunate back in October, the commissioners asked me to come and assist Kathleen Brown, who was substituting as a justice here in the court, and she became somewhat overwhelmed, and I was happy to come and help out for a couple of weeks. Well, that couple of weeks turned into almost 6 months, and as I call it, my part-time or my full-time part-time job. During the time that I was here sitting on the bench, I had over 200 hours of time as a justice, and was able to adjudicate cases involving traffic law, criminal law, civil cases, and even at several small claims courts. I feel that that's given me the ability to know what this job is about and whether or not I'm suited for it, and I do believe that I am. And I think that having that learning curve out of the way at the end of Judge James's tenure here, we can have an extremely smooth transition and have the court turn over without any difficulties. I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Well, good evening. My name is Pat Morgan, and I'm running for Justice of the Peace. I feel that I have the education and the experience to be a fair and effective justice for Mineral County. I have 10 years experience as a court administrator, where I also worked with the Supreme Court, sat on several committees for domestic violence, for DUI. I've worked with many of the different programs, the offender programs. I also have an experience as a teacher, and I have an experience as in business. I have a business degree. I also have an education degree, and I also have a master's degree in legal studies. I feel that I have the experience to perform this job. I was also one of the trainers for all the small towns for the new court software when it came out, Full Court. I know the software inside and out very extensively, especially the financial end, as I was in control and in charge of running the budget, running all the reports for all the different state agencies, and I reconciled all the financials for the municipal court in Missoula, which was a huge database of patients and as financials. In the 10 years I was there, I was never over budget and there was never a penny missing out of the budget. So I would think I do have the experience and the knowledge, and I would appreciate your vote for Justice of the Peace. Thank you.
I'm going to call on Nick again to begin. Is one of 3 candidates running for HD 14. However, for personal reasons and other reasons that we may not know per se, the other 2 candidates were unable to attend. So this question that I'm going to ask of Nick is specific to his position as an incumbent. All right? All right, Nick, as an incumbent, describe the 3 most important accomplishments of your first tenure.
Well, first, I think the first would show priorities, and it'd be my first vote on the House floor as your representative. And that would be voting alone, 99-1 no, against pay raises for legislators. The second, for those of you who are very concerned about your water rights, despite tremendous pressure, would be voting no on the CSKT proposed water compact. And the third, for following through on promises about tax bills. In my House Taxation Committee, every bill that came before my committee that increased your taxes or created new taxes died in my committee. Thank you.
Mineral County Commissioner. All right, here's the question. What do you think needs to be done to help stabilize the Mineral County Hospital and Mineral Regional Health Center in Superior and in St. Regis?
If there's anybody here that works for the hospital, I apologize ahead of time for what I'm going to tell you. The chief way that a hospital advertises is by word of mouth. And how many people do you know that have been 100% pleased by their stay in the hospital? In the West End, I have never heard anybody really come right out and praise the hospital. Most of them have said, don't go there, go to Missoula. But the hospital lately has been making some great strides cosmetically, which makes the building look better on the inside. And I wish the money would have been spent more on a really competent staff. My mother-in-law was in the hospital for almost 3 days several years ago. And while she was there, no one came in to give her a sponge bath. Nobody gave her a wet or a damp washcloth to wipe her hands with before and after eating. And this is the kind of thing that people will remember, and they will go out and tell people about their experience at the hospital. The nurses' station should not be a place for socializing. And I have 30 seconds, so this isn't an important one. Another improvement that could be made is to make more services available to Mineral County residents, possibly by working with specialty providers to visit either the hospital or the clinic twice a month, and most importantly, to have surgical privileges at the hospital. Thank you very much, and I hope I didn't offend anyone.
I'm very pleased with the hospital and their staff and their doctors. I use it 2 or 3 times a week with physical therapy. My wife had surgery there. Granted, had some bad CEOs come in and try to turn us upside down, but they're getting that straightened out. And I feel that the hospital's here to use. We need to use it, or we're going to lose it. And we need to support it. I'm very much willing to support that hospital and their staff. They've been very good with us.
What needs to be done to stabilize the hospital and the health center? We've heard on several occasions from the sheriff's candidates that we need to get back to the basics. And just like the sheriff's office, The hospital and clinic need to regain the public trust that has been lost by providing quality care and service, along with better public relations. They need to sell themselves to all of Mineral County, not just Superior, St. Regis, Alberton, or the West End. We're all in this together, and we need to work together to solve these problems. Speaking of being in this together, a big part of the hospital's budget picture lies within maintaining usage numbers. If jobs at our local businesses are not maintained, we lose families. If we lose families, we lose patients at the hospital and the clinic. So if we work together to support one another, we may be able to stabilize the hospital as we know it. The same thing with the clinic. And I say to you, just like Tony did, use them or lose them. And we don't want to lose the hospital. We have a lot of friends and neighbors that work there. That hospital has been a piece of Mineral County for as long as Mineral County's been here. And it needs to stay here. We just need to use it. We need to work through these hard times. Thank you.
The next question is for the Justice of the Peace. Can or should expense to the county be considered when sentencing? Consider incarceration versus rehabilitation versus probation with regards to expenses.
Okay, I think I rolled this all into one, but I do realize that taxpayers may be concerned about cost to defendant sentencing, but the economics of sentencing should not be the focus of the process. As a part of the judicial process, sentencing should be decided on the individual merits of each case. Offenses such as DUIs and partner family member assaults already have stated mandated incarceration and rehab programs connected to them. Further incarceration and rehab programs may be considered, and those costs may be accrued to the defendant. The sentencing process should consider the nature of the crime, the defendant's criminal record, the concern of community safety, and the possibility of recidivism or becoming a repeat offender. There are several options to control the costs of misdemeanor probation. Some programs in this state are run by the county or the city, which does incur the cost to the county or the city. Many times the defendants have a minimal pay, and in some programs they go on a sliding fee scale. There are several other options. There are some towns in Montana who use private-based misdemeanor probation programs, and that total cost goes on to the defendant and not onto the county. There is a concern, though, when defendant-based pay reaches an unattainable amount for a defendant, they don't complete their treatment programs, they don't complete their probation, then increases their chance for recidivism, which then increases the cost to the county when they are incarcerated again for non-compliance. So I do believe that one of the main keys to keep costs down is for the court system to have an effective collection system to collect the fines that are out there and bring those monies in. Thank you.
Given our current financial status here in Mineral County, can we consider that? Of course we can consider that. Should we consider it? We should consider everything. But to make that a basis for a decision is ethically and judicially not proper. There are a lot of alternatives that we can use. As Pat pointed out, for DUIs, drugs, and partner family member assaults, there's certain mandatory minimums that we have no choice over. Can we use fines in lieu of jail time? Certainly. Can we use weekends in jail for folks with jobs that we don't want them to lose, so that we don't lose that productive part of our counties? Certainly. Community service, I found when I was there, especially with a lot of our juveniles, visible community service seems to be a pretty good deterrent. But there's one expense that I won't abide, and that expense is making a financial or hasty decision that puts in jeopardy the lives and the protection of the citizens of this county. Sitting up on that bench when a guilty verdict is rendered is probably one of the most gut-wrenching things that I've ever experienced. After you've heard the testimony, weighed the evidence, then it's time for you to make a decision and to render a verdict. And you go through a whole ramification of emotions because you're going to affect someone's life, you're going to affect someone's family, you may affect their job or their career, and you will certainly either positively or negatively affect their future. And then in an instant, you have to take all of that and sweep it aside and just do the right thing and the just thing in the decision that you make and the judgment that you render. And I hope you appreciate the gravity of that. Thank you very much.
When sentencing an offender, the most important thing to consider is offender risk to the community. When considering alternative sentencing, there must be no negative impact anticipated to the safety, security, and health of our community. When appropriate, alternative sentencing benefits a taxpayer by putting financial consequences on the offender, not on the taxpayer. Jail is totally supported by the taxpayers. Taxpayer dollars feed, house, pay for all medical, dental, vision, prescriptions, toiletry, etc. Alternative sentencing, again when appropriate, provides a true cost savings and benefit to the community. Offenders can pay their debt, comply with court orders, remain supervised and support themselves and their family. Without these programs, offenders went to jail, lost homes, employment, family and support systems, only to be released back into the community with less support, few if any lifestyle tools, and very little if any positive reasons to change their way of life. Quality programs help not only to reduce costs and impact on the taxpayers, but can be largely supported with fees paid by the offenders. Treatment court and probation are already in place in Mineral County. Adding offenders to these programs does not increase the financial burden to the taxpayer. Through these programs, offenders are required to pay their own way. So yes, expense to the county is one of many considerations facing the justice of the peace when sentencing offenders. Thank you.
During sentencing, each case has to be considered on its own merits. The history of the offender and the evidence should be closely examined to determine the appropriate program. By law, there are mandatory and minimum and maximum sentences for DUI offenses and all other offenses. However, the county budget has already stretched to the point that all costs have to be considered. For the first-time offender, I believe that incarceration should be avoided if possible. According to the Montana website, the average cost of county jail is about $63 a day. For probation and parole, it runs about $4.69 per day. If the court feels that the offense was due to the offender making a one-time mistake, then they should be given a lenient sentence, and that is allowed under state law. I believe the justice court should not be used solely for revenue generation, but as a tool for assisting offenders to correct their behavior. I do not know enough about treatment programs to determine their effectiveness. I know that for DUI offenses, the treatment program is mandatory, but I do not know about gambling and drug offenses. However, I have seen statistics that show those who serve jail time for alcohol or drug-related crimes rather than treatment have a much higher recidivism rate. I do feel that the effectiveness of treatment programs depends on the individual's own life choice. I know a few people who went through rehab programs for drug and alcohol abuse and have completely turned their life around and been sober for years. I also know of others who could not wait to complete the program so they could start drinking or using drugs again. I really question if the programs work without the offenders truly being invested in making a personal choice for change. I believe that getting help for first-time offenders should be the priority of the court, and jail time should be reserved for repeat offenders. Thank you.
Today, it costs $62.50 a day to house someone in the Mineral County Detention Center. When someone is in jail, they do not contribute to their household, which ends up costing all of us in one way or another. Their family becomes dependent on assistance for housing, utilities, food, and the list goes on. When the statute mandates that treatment is part of sentencing, for example, DUI or partner family member assault, the offender shall be ordered to attend and complete the required treatment in addition to serving the required jail time. If the offender qualifies for the treatment court program by having a drug or alcohol-related offense, that may be a way for him or her to enter an intensive treatment program where there is stricter monitoring and a weekly court appearance, but possibly less jail time. That is all dependent on the plea agreement between the county attorney and the defense attorney. Substance abuse is often the cause of repeat offenses. Jail time alone is not going to help if there are underlying issues. I feel treatment would be appropriate then. There's also a cost savings to the county by having someone in a treatment court rather than having them sit in jail. Treatment court saves about $13,000 for each person that they serve, and 75% of drug court graduates do not reoffend. Drug courts are the nation's most effective strategy in reducing recidivism, especially among drug-addicted offenders with long criminal histories. Since 1989, drug courts have saved over 1.3 million lives and billions of tax dollars, forever changing the course of a predominant lock-em-up philosophy and proving once and for all that treatment does work when accompanied by accountability. As far as probation in that whole mix, it depends on the severity of the crime, the criminal history, and the offender's risk to society. You have to take each case on a case-by-case basis.
The next group is the sheriffs. How would you respond if a member of the public relayed to you that dispatch told him or her, quote, "There is no one on duty right now," unquote? First part. Second part, how would you rectify this concern?
Well, first of all, there are very few hours on the day when there's no officer on duty. Obviously, when each crime has a priority, robberies, assaults, and burglaries have the higher priority. With those, the deputy needs to be called, and there are protocols in place for that. With the lower crimes as thefts of chainsaws, and stuff like that, those are lower priorities, and a deputy can get to them in a timely fashion. Or that's good to have someone who has law enforcement experience, a retiree, to start, that volunteers to come out and start the paperwork that way, if no law enforcement is available at the time. What was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
How would you rectify this concern?
So, the way you could rectify that is to adjust schedules to more to your off hours, to maybe where the calls are coming in, where if the deputies aren't available or aren't on shift at the time. Or you can talk with the county commissioners and try to get more deputies. More deputies, faster response times. Thank you.
Well, it is inappropriate. The dispatcher shouldn't be telling anybody that. I don't know what the disconnect is with the sheriff's office. I'm looking from the inside out, or from the outside in. There were 7 of us when I was here, and there's 7 of them now. Well, they're down to 6 right now for the past couple weeks. But we never had that problem, as far as I know, when Anita was here. The schedule was made to where there was coverage. It's not 24 hours, but it was coverage enough to where early morning hours, if something happened, somebody came out, and dispatch never said nobody's available or you'll have to wait. They were instructed to say a deputy will be on his way, and someone was being called out to deal with that. If the deputies aren't answering their phones to come out, well, and we find out that they're avoiding their phones, what I will do is they'll be parking their take-home cars at the office and driving their personal rigs. The reason they get take-home cars
is so that they can respond from their houses and they can come in a quick manner. Now, we're gonna do the schedule like we did again back in the day, and there should be no more problem with that. The sheriff also's gotta be working and coming out. The undersheriff's gotta be working. They all gotta be working as a team. We're too small of a county, or as a department, to not be doing that. And the deputies all gotta be responsible for their action and held accountable. The dispatch has to be careful how she words things, and she needs to be getting a hold of, going through the chain and getting a hold of people. Yeah, I just, for a loss of words when I hear that. I've seen that in the community. I've heard them come into the commissioner meetings. That's one of their number one complaints, is nobody's coming. The school, 84 hours to respond to the school. For God's sakes, the school should be a priority, especially nowadays with the news and what's happening. And it was a priority for us back then. So I don't know what the disconnect is. It's common sense, I think. And the deputies will be held accountable, and they'll be coming out, and so will I. Thank you.
I'm gonna go for it. First off, no, you should absolutely never hear that there's nobody on duty. When you call 911, that's your emergency. You don't need to be playing Jeopardy or Russian roulette, whatever you want to call it, to hopefully there's help on that other line. We're at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, agency. You should be told an officer will get a hold of you. If it's a less serious of a crime, you'll get a phone call. If not, there'll be an officer at your house. How to rectify that is training. Dispatch needs to be trained, taught what they can and can't say for liability reasons, and we go from there. It can be addressed through training and what's appropriate and what's not. When you call 911, you need someone there, because you wouldn't be calling if it wasn't important. Thank you.
I have a hard time imagining a dispatcher from what I'm used to saying something like this, just because in my world in law enforcement, someone always comes, no matter what. So maybe the dispatchers do need additional training on what to do when this happens. You know, if a call comes in, a deputy will respond, period. That's all there is to it. One of the things that I'll do is I'll require that a log is kept, who, what, where, why, and when, so I can follow up with the deputies and the dispatchers to verify that this has happened, because the worst case scenario, the one thing that I don't want to hear from someone out in the public is, why didn't I get a deputy the other night when this happened? That would, for me, as a sheriff in Mineral County, would be the most embarrassing thing that I would have to face. And that's not what I'm about, and that's not going to happen on my watch, period. The thing about dispatch, too, is every call that comes in is recorded. And that's good for accountability reasons. So everyone's held accountable. But I also believe that I will lead by example. I expect to be called out. I will be called out. That's going to be first and foremost. If I need to be called out, I'm called out. If I'm the next one coming out, I will be called out. I do not have a problem with that. In fact, I have a cot that I'll probably put in my office to sleep there to make sure that response time is good. And all joking aside, I would do that if I had to do that, because, like I said earlier, I love Mineral County. I'm going to live here the rest of my life, regardless of this election turnout, and I'm going to do everything I can to build the trust back in the community through positive, proactive law enforcement. Thank you.
All right. I feel they deserve a round of applause. All right, if I can have your attention up here, please. As in the past two forums, the majority of the questions are geared towards the sheriff's candidates. And so we're going to try to spend as much time, most of the time, on asking these questions of the sheriff's candidates. However, there are some questions for the other groups. We will ask those first and then ask those candidates to step down into the audience. I have a question that is being asked of all of the candidates. Nick, I'd like you to come on up here again. Public perception is often that there is a good old boy network in effect when dealing with justice matters. Specifically, how do you plan to overcome the impression that your decisions may be influenced by outside sources, such as friends, community, and family members.
Now, I gotta be honest with you, and I'm gonna loop this into culture in Helena during the 4 months that we're up there every other year. Perception is not wrong. A good old boy network does exist, and it's a problem. I mean, you get a tremendous. You're presented with two paths, and you see them at the beginning. And there's the easy one where everybody's nice to you, maybe votes for your bill, leaves you alone. And then there's the other one where if you go against the grain, if you don't do the common thing, if you stand out like a sore thumb, if you're throwing no votes alone, then they make your life uncomfortable. And they do both the, I don't want to say it because law enforcement's up here with the good cop, bad cop thing. But, you know, no, but you do. I've gotten the, you know, when I didn't have a wiper for my car when it was snowed, and somebody saw me brush it off with my hand. I had a beautiful wiper on my desk one day to try and kind of influence me one way, but when I still wouldn't go, this is true. And then when I wouldn't go, you know, I'll be brought into a side room for a couple hours and told I'm making a mistake. You know, you get the whole thing. And I think that, you know, even though it may give me a little more grief, I think it's healthy for folks to be skeptical of the elected bodies and elected officials from the inside. And I wouldn't discourage that. You know, it's just, you gotta look at my record and see what I've done to see if you think that I'm starting to get blurred by that and become a part of it. It's very important to me that I don't, and that I do what's right, even if it's kind of rough from time to time. One example was that no vote that was very unpopular with my colleagues that I mentioned earlier. And please do be skeptical. It'll keep your government honest.
Okay, first of all, I can tell you truthfully, I'm not easily influenced. Ask my wife. I'm kidding. She's the person I listen to probably most. But you have to get all of the information. You have to listen to every side of the story before you can make an intelligent decision. It's probably fairly easy to find out or to know and sense when somebody is just trying to get you on their side. Sometimes they might offer you a fishing trip or whatever, and that's not even going to work with me. I'm my own person. I will find the information. I will make a good choice as far as I'm concerned. If that choice goes against the person who wants something different, I'm sorry. They maybe didn't present the information correctly, or when I went searching, I found the truth. And the truth has to come out. And so that's, I guess, my stand on that. So.
I will not be persuaded by friends or relatives. I'll apply my decisions by God's word. What's true is true, what's false is false. And I'll apply that in any decision I make as a county commissioner. That there's only one decision, that's the right decision. And I've heard something tonight that disturbs me about the health insurance for the employees of the county. You have $1,500 deductible, that's uncalled for. So if I'm commissioner, I'm looking to a different health insurance so our employees are covered.
Yes, I do believe that, yes, I do believe that there is a bit of a perception out there in the public that there's a good old boy club. And I think the way that you deal with that is you convey it to your sheriff. And you got to realize the sheriff is an elected official, if you haven't read that in the papers lately. That the only control that the commissioners have over another elected official is the budgets. And we've been accused at times that, oh, you're going to hold that over their head, or you have held that over their head. We don't hold that over their head. We live here too. We want the best possible law enforcement that we can give this community. But we also have to live within budgets. That's a reality. This is where we live. We can only absorb so many taxes. And so I guess to answer the question, what are you going to do about it? You have to live by your ideals. I've always been an honest man, and I will always be an honest man. And if you ask me a question, I'll give you a direct answer. It may not be what you want to hear, but I will give you a direct answer. And I guess that's what you have to live by, is live by your ideals and do what you think is right. Thank you.
I also don't buy into the good old boy system, and I'm not easily influenced either. As a deputy sheriff for 9 years here, I told friends and family that don't put me in a position where I'm going to have to arrest you, because I will. Fortunately, I was never put in that position, but I stand by that. If you've done something wrong, expect the consequences, because I will arrest. And just make it known that they won't get a break. The thing about perception is I was always taught early from my parents and then from the Air Force that perception is reality. So what the public perceives is important, and it is reality. And you need to listen to that. People will give you subtle hints that tell you that, and if you don't listen to it and you don't pick up on it, then you're not doing your job. As far as the hiring process goes, the good old boy system won't work either. Everyone, no matter who it is, will go through graded questions. They will meet a fit test, an oral interview, and then a written test. They must grade out. The person that grades out the highest gets the job, regardless of who it is. Thank you.
Transparency, right? Wrong or indifferent, we need to uphold it and give it to the public and let them weigh it. We don't need to hide something behind closed doors. We need to talk about it. We made a mistake. We learn from it and move on. Transparency is the best way to run a sheriff's office. If you're hiding stuff behind closed doors, it just grows and turns into more septic, and it hurts you. We need to be open, honest, and talk to the community about it. That's the best policy, and that's what we need to do.
The good old boy system they believe is around here. I mean, in the commissioner meetings, they get it all the time in there. In the community, talking to people, you hear about it. I'm one of the few sheriff candidates up here that has a track record of not doing the good old boy system. There's going to be some people out in the audience that know when I was here, there was a high-ranking official, and I'm not going to say the person's name, in the sheriff's office that I did a case and arrested a prominent family member of that person. You don't think there was some grief that came down from that on me? But it had to be done. There was no good old boy system. There was no cover-up. We did what we needed to do. And that's how we're going to run the office. Agree with transparency. We're going to be up front with the citizens, the commissioners, meeting with the commissioners monthly, showing up. And, but again, I've never believed in the good old boy system. I believe in treating people with respect and professionalism, and let the chips fall where they fall. Thank you.
Well, when you're a peace officer, you come into the situation as a neutral party, and you weigh both sides or all sides of the evidence, and you come to a natural conclusion based on what people tell you. So, and then their perception, however, is going to lie wherever. But as long as you're doing your job with integrity as far as doing what's right when no one else is looking. So, that's my thought. You come into the neutral party, you weigh the evidence, and you come to a natural conclusion, and you go from there. Thanks.
As Justice of the Peace, you need to be impartial with every case. If it's a family or friend that comes before you, you need to recuse yourself from the case and have a sub-judge come in to listen to the case. As far as the Good Old Boy Network, everybody needs to be treated the same. You can't show favoritism to anybody. You have, from the get-go, you have to start off being impartial, fair, base your decisions on the evidence presented by the attorneys, and you can't deviate from that. You have to go straight by the statute, straight with the evidence. You have to be impartial and be consistent.
Okay, as far as a Good Old Boy Network being in place, the only Good Old Boy Network I'm familiar with is the good, hardworking people of Mineral County. They've lived here all their life. They're very concerned about the general health, welfare, and security of the area. So I feel that they're the ones that want to see the values that I hold about pursuing those matters. As far as friends and family, most of my friends are family, and they also support my points of view on trying to work to improve the community and the economic interests of Mineral County. Thank you.
You know, these are substantial and very important powers and responsibilities that should only be granted to the most competent and suitable person. As Justice of the Peace, I can make a difference by improving the services to the users of the court, ensuring the quality of justice provided by the court, wise management of taxpayer dollars in the operations of the court, and above all, ensure when dispensing justice that every individual is treated with integrity, fairness, and respect. That's my number one goal. Better justice for a brighter future. Thank you.
Throughout my adult life as a trooper and as a career military man, I have been exposed to the good old boy system. Anecdotally, I can tell you that when I was in the Navy, a lot of my young troops, and I had some wonderful young guys that worked for me, and off duty, of course, they'd want to get familiar with you. And I would let them know in uncertain terms that I would be happy to be their friend, but I said, the one thing you have to realize, I'm your boss first. If you can handle that and still be my friend, then this will work. While I was substituting in the court, I was fortunate I didn't have any run-ins with our local good old boy system, but I can tell you this, the good old boys that I'm going to be influenced by is the Montana Code Annotated, which is the laws of the state of Montana, and an unswerving adherence to the highest standards of judicial ethics. Thank you.
Well, as you can imagine, growing up in the 50s and being a small female, I have definitely had my fair share of the Good Old Boys Club. But I'm a tough person. When I was teaching, I was told that I had a group of at-risk students that could not go to a competition, and I said, watch me. And I took them to a financial competition, and these students won first place in the state. And when I was working in the court, the Supreme Court came down with the new software, and I knew something wasn't being set up correctly. And I voiced my opinion on that, and they disagreed with me, and it was like, oh, Pat, we're gonna do it this way, it'll be okay, this is the way it's always done. And I held my ground, and 6 months later, they found out I was right, and I did not back down. I don't believe that a good old boy club of any kind should ever influence you on anything. And as JP, I would never let a family member or anybody in the community influence any decision I make. And if the Supreme Court of Montana can't get me to bend, then nobody will. So I don't think that's going to be a problem for me at all. I think that the Justice of the Peace needs to look at every case on its own merit, and nobody should be able to influence you on that. Thank you.
And this is for all candidates as well. Take 1 minute to respond to this. It's very short. What is the last book you read?
You know, I have a problem with books because I never sit still long enough. So I do audiobooks, and I do them while I'm gardening, and I do a lot of audiobooks. So the very last one, I really couldn't tell you, but I couldn't tell you the name of them, but my favorite ones are always the Agatha Christie. And you may ask why? And why is because not only do you have to figure it out, which I love, but Agatha Christie books are full of history, believe it or not. They are not, everything in them is not fiction. There's a lot of history in there, and I enjoy that. So it's kind of relaxing for me, so thank you.
Well, it's a good thing that JP is nonpartisan. My last book that I just got finished reading was Miracles and Massacres by Glenn Beck.
To tell you the truth, I'm not a big reader. Typically, I just wait for the movie to come out. That's the truth of that. Thank you.
The last 5 years, I spent a lot of time reading textbooks, just general information for my degree. And since I graduated, all I've read is mindless trash like Lee Clancy, Tom Clancy, Lee Childs, things that I didn't have to memorize or had no redeeming value.
Well, last book I read was Scary Man by Jeffrey Hickey, and the one before that was Moorhead by Jeffrey Hickey. And the reason, he's a boy I dated in high school, and he's turned into a published author.
The last book I read was The Constitutional Sheriff by Sheriff Mack. And the reason why I read that is just to get a perspective of I believe one of the most constitutional sheriffs in our country, and get his perspective on things.
I read How to Run for Sheriff. No. All right. I was traveling when I was traveling all over the country for doing contracts and that for the unions. I heard a story about it's called American Sniper, the Navy SEAL sniper with the most kills in combat. And then he ended up being killed here in the States, helping a vet out. And I was moved by his story, so I wanted to read his book and hear about his life. And so all those nights in the airport, that's what I read. So thank you.
I'm going to tell you the why before I tell you the title. I'm a child abuse investigator, so I deal with a lot of, crap in my job. So I read Rapists, Pedophiles, Groomers, and Grabbers. So I read it for my job, but that's the last book I read.
The last book I read was Lone Survivor. It's a book about a team of Navy SEALs that go in on a mission in Afghanistan. And part of the reason I was drawn to that is I was in the Tora Bora deal, and a lot of what came out in that book was based on that situation. So it really interested me. And the other thing is, I'm not ashamed to say that I read from a good book every night.
Last book that I read was a book by Bud Moore, who used to reside here in Mineral County, and it was titled The Locksaw Story. And it's a bit of a biography of Bud's life and his upbringing in western Montana, mostly over in the Lolo Creek area. And very enlightening, very good reading. My favorite book is Red Dawn Rising by Tom Clancy. Thank you.
I don't read many books. My wife will verify that. I don't read many books. But I read my devotional and it's God's Word every day. And that's the most important book that I can say I read.
The last book that I've read was The New Fishing Guide that I happened to get down in the basement at Castles. But the book that I am reading, again, comes from the Bible, and it's a chapter of Romans. There's a lot to learn and a lot of things to remember so that you can live a good life. And so, anyway, that's what I'm reading now, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'll get her done.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and the folks up here can attest to this, over the last 5-6 weeks, we've been to a lot of events together. These wonderfully hosted ones, some other ones, and forums and questions, and this is probably my favorite question, because I've learned more about these folks in the last 10 minutes than I think in the other forums. Last week, I finished reading The Old Man in the Sea by Ernest Hemingway.
We have one question that came in for the Justice of the Peace candidates. When deciding a just punishment and knowing there are high and lower ranges when dealing with repeat offenders, how will you decide where in the range your punishment will fall, especially in light of how many man-hours by our deputies it takes to bring repeat offenders in?
Okay, again, you need to look at their criminal history. You need to weigh their risk to society. You need to take all the evidence into consideration. And if it is a drug or alcohol offense, I don't want to keep harping on that and going back to that, but there's sometimes underlying reasons why those repeat offenses are happening. If treatment's appropriate, certainly look at that. in addition to the sentencing, and sometimes a longer treatment stay with longer sentencing. They all go hand in hand and they work together. Taking the consideration into, or the hours of, the man hours into consideration, I don't think you should take that into consideration when you're issuing your sentence. That's their job, and you need to carry out your job, and you need to do what's right and according to the statute. You shouldn't let what someone else's job, you shouldn't let that dictate how you handle your job.
Okay, I believe in being lenient about first-time offenders, but repeat offenders are a whole different situation. They're not getting the message, and they're costing the county and law enforcement and the justice court a lot of hours and money. So in that situation, after looking at what their history, I would fine them and levy the sentence on the high side to try to get their attention. And I believe that justice court and law enforcement are a good way to do that. Thank you.
Statute does provide the minimum and maximum. Over a 12-year period, I mediated over a 12-year period, I mediated over 20,000 problem jobs for Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse. I'll use my experience to make the best decision possible. Thank you.
I think that repeat offenders is probably one of the most difficult problems that I had to deal with. In my experience here, obviously this is another one of these questions where judicial ethics doesn't really allow us to elaborate on how we decide where in that range that we choose the appropriate punishment for the appropriate crime. One of the saddest things that I found when I was sitting on the bench here this past winter is that in my experience as a trooper and now my experience as a justice of the peace here, we not only have repeat offenders in this county, we have generational repeat offenders in this county. And that's inexcusable. And I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you that if I'm elected, I'm probably going to deal with them on the hard side, because we've got to get their attention either individually or as a family, because they're a great, great burden on this community. And you as taxpayers don't deserve that. You as citizens don't deserve that. And it's up to the deputies and the courts to try and put an end to that. And that'll be my charter to all of you if I'm elected. Thank you.
Okay, repeat offenders are a big problem in society, in any society. And once again, as Doug did state, according to judicial ethics, I cannot stand up here and blanket statement how we handle them, because you have to look at each case on its own merit. They're all individual. But I would try to utilize what other law enforcement and other agencies might be, information they might be able to provide me. There might be reasons that this person is a repeat offender that we are not aware of. You need to know the entire person. Are they out of work? Do they need more education? Do they have family issues? Is it drinking issues? You need to look at each case, and you need to find out what is going on with that defendant. And you need to be able to provide them with everything that you can to try to get them to be a productive citizen. And once again, I can't just blanket statement what I would do with a defendant. It would depend on the individual case. And if we could get more help to them, then that's what we do. If they need to be incarcerated more, then that's what we will do. If we need to be fined more, that's what we will do. But I can't say that without looking at each individual case. And I think anybody out here would welcome that if they were before the bench. They would want me to look at it individually and do what I can do to help them as well as to help the community. Thank you.
2 questions for the commissioners. First question, how much experience do you have in running a business? How many types?
I have no experience at running a business. I have never run a business, never owned a business.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second question, how will you bring into this county more jobs and or funds to try to get our county safer and economically stable at the same time?
Okay, we've discussed this on several other forums. And the way that Mineral County commissioners have been trying to work and bring jobs to Mineral County has an economic development corporation, and we work hand in hand with them. We encourage them, and they come in and present projects to us. We have one going out at the airport right now. We're trying to get 3-phase power out there so we can expand a existing business that's out there and help him out. And we advertise, we call people, especially since Lori has become commissioner. We have called quite a few people, actually. Gun companies, you see these gun companies that are moving back. Who wouldn't want to move to Mineral County and open a gun manufacturing company? Well, none of them so far. But we do keep writing letters and making phone calls and following up on leads if we think that there could be a business. The problem that we're presented with here is we have very small workforce and very, very small private land, and very little to offer a business moving here other than the quality of life that we all enjoy. So it's a tough situation. But we do keep working with that. Mineral County Economic Development Corporation is tied with several other economic development corporations in adjoining counties that work, trying to find. Bob mentioned Kalispell being a perfect example of attracting businesses, but Kalispell has a lot more people, and Flathead County has a lot more people, a lot more land base, and they're not 82.1% federally owned. That's kind of a hindrance here, but we do keep working, and we will continue to keep working. I hope I answered that.
I've had 48 years running a trucking business and a logging business. And I've had business experience in a gold mine, being part of that. I've had experience in managing referees at a Mid-Valley Basketball Association. My wife and I are involved with the Lincoln County Fair in Oregon. We had to manage that. And I was in our CS board, chairman of the board for a while. So basically I've been pretty much self-employed all my life. I'll try and deal with people I know that I can have some influence on, and especially in the trucking business. Get maybe a trucking company to come into this country, into Mineral County. So that's one aspect. Also dealing with, I'm going to try to deal with these high-tech flight apparatus that go with these drones that are flying around. So I'm going to try my best to talk to those that know me, that have seen me in business and have dealt with me, and talk with them.
Okay, the very first business that I've had the pleasure of helping run is the marriage to my wife. And I'll tell you what, when you've got 6 kids and you have to clothe and feed them, 5 of them are girls, like I said, and they're a year apart in age, you have to pinch your pennies and you have to watch what you're doing to be able to have everybody happy and to be able to stay on top of the bills. So that's the first. The second is, quite a few years ago, I started the Flathead Lake Music Camp. It's been going now for, since probably since 1958. It services now 185 students every summer, with staff members that are all from the major local colleges or colleges that are within 200 or 300 miles from here. The budget for that camp was my responsibility. We had to plan carefully. It's the kind of thing you're not sure how many of the people that say that, or the kids that say they're coming actually will show up. So you have to build in a safeguard of money, and you try to save as much so you'll have more for the next year. It's been a wonderful experience, and I have to, now that I'm out of it, just to show you the success of this camp. Like within the last couple of years, there were 15 students and 8, I guess they were probably like teachers, that came to the camp from China and spent the week there. The camp is always held at the Methodist Church Campground on Flathead Lake. And so those are the major areas. Also budgeting at school. As a teacher, you have to run a budget. If you don't, then you go and you cry to the principal and the superintendent and the school board. And that's not much fun. Goodbye. Thank you. That's a tough question. And I know that people have been working hard to get more people here. I think that we have to keep looking. We can't ever stop. Because there's got to be someone who would like to move their job, their business here. Especially if that person is an outdoorsman. And I don't know, we just have to keep calling, we have to keep looking, we can write letters, there are all kinds of things. The internet now is at our disposal to contact just about anybody in the world. And we have to do that, because if we don't seek, we won't find. If we don't look, we won't see. And it's really important that we keep looking. We need to find things that jobs that could come here, that people can do, make a decent living with, and so that kids that graduate from high school will have a place to go instead of out of this county. So,
What insight do you have into your faults? What have you learned from your mistakes?
You know, in life, if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're never going to improve. And one thing about making a mistake, if you want to improve, that's how you start. Competing in wrestling. If you get beat, you figure out why you get beat. And you improve on that. And in life, or the job as a sheriff in the county is no different. I can stand up here and say, I'm not going to make mistakes, but you all know that's BS. That's not going to happen. You'll make mistakes because it's a demanding job that requires a person's 24/7. So you learn from those mistakes, and the key to that is not repeating those mistakes. You need to learn from your mistakes and not repeat them. So once you figure out how to do that, then the rest is easy. But you know it's not easy because you're going to always be faced with challenges. So you learn from those challenges, you learn from the mistakes, and you move on. And you can't dwell on them, because if you dwell on them, it's going to ruin you. Move on, don't repeat them, and do the best job you possibly can 24/7.
We're all human. We all make mistakes. My mistakes have led me here today, where I've been, where I've come. So if you ask my dad, I'm a hard learner, but those mistakes have led me here in my life and my decisions. I've learned from them. We all make them. We'll keep making them, but we need to pursue forward and get over them and learn from our past.
I would hope I've learned from my faults and my mistakes. I think just like everybody says, that's how you grow up. 42 years of living life, even in law enforcement, mistakes I've made in investigations and all that. You've got to learn from it and move on. Training helps. Dealing with peers, looking for leadership. And I think by doing that, I can help the younger officers in my department and lead them and show them that it's okay to make mistakes. The cover-up's always worse than the mistake. So show them that it's okay, get back up on your feet, and keep moving. So thank you.
Well, I have to echo those statements and sentiments that when you go through life, you're going to make mistakes. It's how you overcome those mistakes and learn from them. Just like in sports, you want to get better, you're going to make mistakes at that, and you'll practice to get better with those. So I echo everyone's sentiments on that. You make mistakes through life, and as long as you learn from them and become a better person.
Thank you, Rob. And if you could take the second question. How do you feel about medical marijuana?
Well, medical marijuana, as long as it's, in my opinion, prescribed by a doctor, it's okay.
Well, it depends how many has a card in this room. No. Really, I think as sheriff, and we just talked about the good old boy system. It doesn't matter what I believe. It's like with the judges. It's what the state law is and what that requires. And as long as the people are following the requirement of the state law or city ordinances or county ordinances, that's really all that matters for a sheriff to make that decision. I mean, that's why they're there, and that's why we're avoiding the good old boy system. Everyone's going to be treated equally and within the law. Thank you.
We don't get to choose the laws we enforce and which ones we don't. We have to go by the MCA and uphold the laws. So if medical marijuana is legal, we have to go by that. We just can't take a personal vendetta against things we don't like. We have to stand by the law and go that way.
Well, like it or not, it's here, and I think it's here to stay. As a member of a drug task force for 12 years, when that law came in place, I saw firsthand the negative effects of medical marijuana. If medical marijuana is used properly and people stay within the laws that are prescribed for that law, it's fine. I think there is a place for it. But I saw homicides, I saw burglaries, I could go on and on about things that had happened because of medical marijuana. That's the human aspect of it. If it, like I said, stayed within the standards of that law, it would be fine. But, well, I'll tell you what, when it came about, that's not how it was. It got so out of hand that, as you know, the feds had to step in to stop it because there was so much. They couldn't provide enough marijuana for the people that were using it. So what people were doing was they were having marijuana hauled in from out of state, which makes it illegal. And that happened because people get greedy. And then that's where it goes south. And that's what happened with this. So, you know, there was a lot of negative that came from that because of the feds having to step in, and it got ugly and it got bad. So they had to redo the law, and since then it's been pretty good. So, like I said, if they stay within the standards, it works. And I think in certain cases, depending on your illness, it is appropriate.
If you are elected sheriff, will you publish the weekly sheriff's report?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I will. And I think that's important because I think the public needs to be informed. That's part of building that law enforcement community trust back up so that they can read in the paper that we received their call and we addressed it. We took care of it. One of the things that I'm going to do if I'm elected is look at cases that are still open and get resolution to them, because the people of Mineral County deserve that. There's a lot that aren't closed right now that in my opinion, is totally unacceptable, and I want to change that. And again, I think what that's going to do is it's going to build the trust back up that's not there right now, that we so desperately need.
That goes back to transparency. We show our faults, we show what we're doing, we don't hide anything. The sheriff's office report shows that we're working and responding to calls. Absolutely, it should be published. And like Tom said, the outstanding cases need to be solved and worked on. That goes back to community policing, building relationships with the community, and looking at the report and seeing that we're doing stuff. It has to be published. We need to be upfront and honest so they know what's going on.
Yeah, that comes back to the perception and what is, you know, whether it's valid or not, what's the sheriff's office doing? It was always published before when I was here. And matter of fact, I've been going to the commissioner meetings, and the commissioners will tell you, one of the first things I asked them when I started going in November is, where's the report from the sheriff's office that was usually given to them every month? And I got a blank stare back at me of, what are you talking about? Because that report tells the commissioners how many tickets an officer's written, the mileage they've driven on their cars, how many arrests, how many people are in the jail, everything like that. And none of the commissioners had ever seen this. And I was shocked. I did end up talking to Ronnie Phillips and mentioning it to her, and I think she ended up getting with the commissioners, and I'm pretty sure it's got remedied since. I don't know if there was a disconnect, but yeah, the report has to be in there. You people want to know, everybody, citizens wants to know that the officers are out there doing their job, and it's very important. So yes, I will publish it.
Yes, I would also publish it. Keeping the citizens informed is what you want, so you get our perception, and so you don't only get one perception from the news or media or paper.
How do you view the office of undersheriff? How will you choose this position? And do you know who will be your right-hand partner as undersheriff?
Okay. How do I view the undersheriff position? Well, the undersheriff is in charge of the jail, so they gotta have knowledge of the jail. How would I pick this person? They gotta have knowledge of the jail, and they gotta have the same boundaries and ideals and everything as I do. So that way, when I'm maybe out of the county, that I know everything's being run close to the way I would run it. Not everyone's perfect. Do I have anybody in mind? No, I do not. I know there's been rumors around that if I'm elected sheriff, that I would hire or appoint Jim Ballinger as undersheriff. That's not the case. I most likely will probably pick within the department, but I do not know who at this time. Thank you.
The undersheriff's a very important part of the community and the process in the sheriff's office. Obviously, he has the sheriff's back. He needs to believe in the same goals and mission statement of the department. He needs to help me run it. He's got to be a working undersheriff. He's got to be able to get along with the citizens. He's got to be an asset to the community. How am I going to do it? How am I going to go about picking it? Well, you can do it several ways. It's all totally up to the sheriff. State law states that the sheriff is the only one that can pick it or choose how it's picked. I believe before this last sheriff had a application and a committee do it. That was his right as sheriff. Me, following state law, I'm going to pick my own, and I do know who he is. I'm going to bring him in. He's going to be an asset to this community. He's got over 15 years of law enforcement experience. He's from Montana, and he wants to raise a family here. He's been here. He's seen the community. He's talked to a few people, and I'm going to be very excited, and I hope I get to bring him here because I think everybody's going to welcome him here, and we're going to make some positive changes and be the leadership that this department needs. Thank you.
The undersheriff position, the most important position to the sheriff. He's his right-hand man. He stands next to him when they're there arguing with the commissioners or whatever's going on. He's standing next to you. He's the most important guy. But let's not beat around the bush. To bring in an outside undersheriff, there has to be a position open in the sheriff's department. Right now, there's currently one position open, which I know they're currently trying to fill. I sat with the applicants, went over with Undersheriff Mike Boone, and we looked at him as an investigator to help him background. It's going to be filled. So that means, as of right now, unless the commissioners approve another deputy, we can't bring one in from the outside because there's no money. So it has to come from in-house. As of right now, it has to be an in-house deputy unless the sheriff leaves the deputy position open. So I have a couple candidates, but they're all in-house at this time.
In a lot of ways, the undersheriff is more important than the sheriff. That individual is going to be your right-hand man. He has to have a working knowledge not only about law enforcement, but management, budget, because that individual is going to help me make those tough decisions that we need to do. It has to be an individual that you trust. It has to be an individual that you can work with and be a best friend, because he's the one that you're going to go to, or she's the one you're going to go to figure out things that are tough to figure out. Like Adam said, the tough thing about it is unless there's an opening, you have to stay within. And a lot of ways I like that because you've got a smooth, seamless transition into being the sheriff, because that person's been there, they've done it, they know what's going on, they can help you with any aspect that you need. But for me, it has to be someone that you know and trust, that when you have to go to Missoula for an evening or whatever, that you can trust them to take care of the things that need to be taken care of every day. Not just when you're gone, but when you're there too. It's an important job. I think it's as important as the sheriff's job. I really do. And it's important that you get the right person in there. So I have a few people in mind as well. I think all four of us that have said that we're not going to publicly make that decision or announce that publicly who that'll be until after the primary is done. And that's my stance on it at this point in time. Thank you.
Have you ever enforced disciplinary action with an employee?
Yes, I have. I've had to do that a couple of times as a supervisor in the drug task force that I worked with. Individuals were taking time off and not telling their immediate supervisor about it. Part of the problem with that is I supervised 8 other criminal intelligence analysts that were not with me in the same city I worked in. They worked in other various cities throughout the state. So it was difficult to supervise them, and I hate to micromanage, and I won't do that unless I have to, unless there's a problem. We rectified that easy enough. I mean, there had to be a paper trail, and once we established that, then it wasn't a problem. But we didn't do a good job setting a standard. And a lot of times that's what happens. You don't know the problem exists until it happens. And once it does happen, then you address it. First, you figure out what's wrong, talk to the supervisor, make a plan, get together with the individual, come to a resolution with it, put the plan in place. And then the thing that's important with that is you need to follow up with it to make sure that the plan that you've decided on works. And if it works, then a couple months later you do another follow-up. And once that second follow-up is done, if it's still good and it's still rectified and doing a good job, then you're good to go.
When I worked for the Department of Corrections, I was a drill instructor at a boot camp for inmates, mostly houses of violent offenders and drug addiction offenders. I was there, I was a sergeant. I came out onto the drill floor, and one of the drill instructors, who was a corporal below me, was in a bad position. He put the whole facility in a bad position. He didn't realize what he was doing and realize the situation. We talked to him, I gave him a verbal, and then he did it again a couple of weeks later. I had to pass it up to my senior drill instructor, and the situation was resolved, so yes.
Well, during my labor relation union stuff, traveling over the country for the federal security guards that do the IRS or the Social Security, the guys that make you walk through the little metal detectors now in Missoula when you go there, those guys are part of the union that I operated in. Matter of fact, the Missoula guys were under me. I was their director. I was out of Denver. So they obviously, there's a lot of conflict with them, with their employers and their behavior when they're dealing with public, and it was my job as a director to call them up and issue discipline to them or come up and give training and that. So yes, I have done that. I have no problem doing that, and the deputies will be held accountable. There will be proper discipline dealt with according with the labor laws of progressive discipline, and so yeah, I've done it. Thank you.
Have I ever enforced disciplinary action on an employee? No, but that doesn't mean I haven't supervised anyone. During my military career, I've been a corporal, supervising up to 6 to 10 people at one time. And being an FTO, you supervise the new recruits that come in, but I have not, fortunately or unfortunately, disciplined any employees.
Ron, what is FTO?
Field training officer.
What do you feel your responsibility is to the community when you are off duty?
Well, my responsibility when I'm off duty as sheriff does not change. Conduct myself in a proper professional manner when I'm out in the community. Everyone's watching you. Watch what you say, watch how you act. and you lead by example.
Responsibility in the community, you're gonna hear people say, obviously, we're always on duty 24 hours a day. Everybody knows that in law enforcement. The sheriff, even more so. He's getting more calls a night about the jail, about dispatch, about the neighbor's dog. But I don't think that's what the question's about. How are you gonna carry yourself in the community? What are you gonna do for the community? And as sheriff, you need to be going to the meetings throughout the community, to Alberton, to St. Regis, to coming here to the commissioner's room and meeting with them in the room. I've been going to those meetings since November, and not to throw somebody under the bus, but I rarely see a member of the sheriff's office in there unless he's there to ask for something. Not even to walk in. I know there's a deputies that some of the commissioners haven't even met yet, and don't even know what they look like, and that's not appropriate. The sheriff needs to be one of the community, be involved with the fairgrounds. Why can't you come here and have, we're talking about school resource officers, and to give him a proper shout out, the current sheriff is working on getting a school resource officer, and he came into the commissioners, and there appears to be a very good plan for that, so I support his plan fully on that, and if I'm sheriff, I'll carry it on. But why can't he come in here and have lunch every now and then with the kids? Go to the other schools, meet with them, have his undersheriff, have his deputies in. There's no reason that can't be going on. You gotta be it's just not out arresting people. You gotta be part of the community. You gotta get out there and let them know that you're human. It's not Mayberry. We still got responsibilities and we still got rules, and we can't be necessarily good old boy, but we can be friendly, we can be part of the community and show that we care and that we're human. And that's what I want out of my deputies. I expect that out of them, and that's what you'll get out of me. Thank you.
Like my current position, I'm never off duty. I'm the only guy who handles the whole county for sexual abuse crimes for kids. I've taken calls on Thanksgiving. I've taken them on holidays. That goes back to being a sheriff. You're the only guy who leads the department unless you're out of town and it goes to your undersheriff. Our personal lives have to reflect our duty life. You don't get to sit in the bar, drink one night, the next night be out busting the people for you doing the same thing. You have to hold yourself to a higher standard. You have to live your life that way. If you can't do it, don't be up here. Plain and simple.
Well, I already mentioned it tonight a couple of times, 24/7. You're never off duty as a sheriff in Mineral County, or any county for that matter. So what that means, you're out in public, you see something illegal happening, you're off duty. What do? You take care of it. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. That's what you do. If you have any integrity at all, that's what you do. But you also have to have that presence within the community to build that trust back up that I think, so desperately need at this point in time. And you do that by going to these meetings. You do that by going to a football game, to a basketball game, to a wrestling match, whatever. Make a presence. You're there. People want to see that. And when they see that, they respect you and talk to you. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm also going to ask my deputies to do that. I've heard so many people say that, occasionally you'll see a deputy drive by, but they never stop to say hi. Well, I think that's part of what you need to do to build that trust back up again. And that will happen with me. I will ask the deputies to do that. And it's important that I do it in a way that they understand why I'm asking them to do that, why it's important that we do that. And when that happens, then the community will help you with the crimes that they see that aren't being reported today. They'll call and report those, and you'll be able to act on them and take care of those problems. Thank you.
And this concludes the questions for the sheriff's candidates. Thank you so much.